Fantasy football season on its way. Here's the top 50 wide receivers I'm ranking going into the season with fantasy drafts approaching most likely this week and for most fantasy owners and all next week. So I did a top 40 a couple weeks ago on the channel. This is an updated list and a few players moved up and down the rankings, and also obviously adding 10 wide receivers more to the rankings. Number one, Ja'Marr Chase. In my opinion, he's the number one pick overall going into fantasy drafts. He's back with Joe Burrow, signing a big contract extension. I'm not saying he's going to put up the same numbers as he did last season, but he's a matchup problem. And as long as Joe Burrow's healthy and this offense keeps moving the football like they have over the last few seasons, Chase every year is in that conversation for number one overall. But after coming off the year last year, he's easily number one. Number two, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. Him and CeeDee Lamb, who was close coming into the year, who's going to be 2 and 3, but I'm going to go give the nod just to Jefferson a little bit. I know McCarthy's in there quarterback for this Minnesota Viking team. Justin Jefferson, when healthy, he's had better seasons than CeeDee Lamb. I'm not taking anything away from CeeDee Lamb, but I just prefer Justin Jefferson just a little going into the season. 3, CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Last season, even in a down year for his standard, CeeDee Lamb, he still went out there, had a nice season with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Dak Prescott, if he's healthy all year, the numbers will improve, obviously, for CeeDee Lamb. But like I said, it's so close in the rankings. If you prefer Lamb over Jefferson, I won't really push back on that, but I just think CeeDee Lamb this season, he's locked in regardless. Is a top 3 option. Number 4, Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. I'm high on Puka Nacua coming into the season. Last year, if he wasn't injured early in the season, I think we could have saw 1,400, 1,500-yard receiving year. And I know going into the season now, Matthew Stafford banged up. He's questionable for the beginning of the year, obviously, with this Los Angeles Ram team. But he's the man there now. Cooper Kupp, they got rid of him. I know they signed Davante Adams, but he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver. And Puka Nacua in the Sean McVay system, he took a 5th-round pick, and he made him already into one of the best receivers in the league. So I'm higher on Puka than consensus, because I even seen him on Yahoo go 15th overall he's ranked, and I think that's too low. In my rankings, he's number 8 overall. Number 5, Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Year in and year out, he puts in big numbers, obviously, as St. Brown. He can run all the routes. He's a great possession receiver. And this offense, indoors, fast track, every season he's going to get 95 to over 100 catches per year minimum with healthy St. Brown. So this season, I don't expect anything less, even with Ben Johnson gone as offensive coordinator. St. Brown, him and Goff, they've been locked in. And after losing last season in the second round to the Commanders, I think this season they come back with a vengeance and this offense goes off even more possibly. Number 6, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. So last season, it could have been a top 2 or 3 finish for Collins if he didn't get hurt. He was well on his way, and then he missed 4 games with the hamstring injury. So Collins and Stroud, they've been locked in since Stroud's been in the league the last 2 seasons. And Collins, he could run all the routes. He could burn secondaries. He signed the contract extension last season. And this year, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be solid. And this team, they might not run the ball effectively a lot, where they got to pass more because Joe Mixon banged up. We don't know if he's going to be ready for the opener. They got Chubb and Pierce, so this could be a pass-first offense even more this year. Number 7, Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants. Malik Neighbors, what a rookie year was for him. Over 100 receptions, and he was pretty much playing with nobodies a majority of the season at quarterback. We saw Tommy DeVito in there at quarterback at times. We saw early in the season was Daniel Jones until they cut him loose. What a bust he was for the New York Giants besides that one season. And now with Russell Wilson in their quarterback, I think Malik Neighbors, he's going to go out there once again this year, have a nice season. He can run all the routes, playmaking, home run ability. And the Giants, they didn't really bring in another target in that offense. That's going to take work from Malik Neighbors. So again, he's going to be a high target player, and he's going to go out there and make plays. Number 8, Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like Thomas Jr. a lot coming into the year. Big play wide receiver. Last season with Mac Jones, a majority of the season, he broke out in the last month of the year, over 1,200 yards for Thomas Jr. So right now, he's at the back end of the first round, early second round pick going into fantasy drafts is Brian Thomas. Like I said, his stock's been rising over the last couple of weeks. He can run all the routes, he can make the plays, and I think this is going to be a team trailing early and often in Jacksonville, where they're going to have to chase points like they did last season. And adding Travis Hunter in the receiving room to help Brian Thomas as well, where he's not getting double teamed every play And they got to obviously respect the speed and the playmaking ability of Hunter as well. Number 9, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. So a few weeks ago, I had Drake London ahead of Brown in my rankings. But the more I think about it, A.J. Brown last season, even in an injury-prone type of season, he went out there and put up points. And I just trust Jalen Hurts more to get his number one target of football than I do Michael Penix to London. So A.J. Brown, he's been a big-time receiver for many seasons, obviously going back with the Tennessee Titans. And him and Jalen Hurts are on the same page now. They won a championship last season. And A.J. Brown's a wide receiver year in and year out, regardless where he's playing or who's the quarterback. He's got more of a track record than London at 10. So Drake London, last season, it was a good year for him with Kirk Cousins in there majority of the season. Now Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the starting quarterback for this Atlanta Falcon team. We'll see how he does. And I see London on some platforms. He's going 14th, 15th overall. I think that's just a little bit high for Drake London. But like I said, he's been a solid receiver since he came into the league a few seasons ago. But like I said, with the quarterback, Michael Penix, we'll see how this offense operates. But he's a talented wide receiver that still could go out there and make plays as well regardless of the quarterback. But like I said, I like A.J. Brown's upside just a little bit more. Number 11, Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers. This offense, he's the number one option coming in the passing game. They added Amarian Hampton in the draft. They added Najee Harris free agency, signed Keenan Allen a couple weeks ago, but I don't think he'll be a threat to Ladd McConkey. And McConkey last year showed he can make big plays, and him and Herbert are locked in where he's a great possession wide receiver and one of the crisper route runners in all the league, only entering his second year. So McConkey, 95, 100 balls caught this season. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Number 12, Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. I'm big on Hill coming into the season, and consensus, websites, podcasters, whatever you want to say. I think Hill this season, as long as he's got his head on straight and off the field stuff doesn't bother him, and this team's healthy and everyone's playing for their jobs here pretty much in Miami. If McDaniel and this team can't get anything going, he's going to be fired. GM's going to be fired. So I think this Dolphin team, they regroup this season, get back to the basics and get back to the offense they were putting up numbers with a few seasons ago. And like I said, with Tua, they just got to tell him, don't take off at all and get rid of that football quick, which he's been doing the last few seasons. 13, Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans, I sound like a broken record, but 11 years in the league, 1,000-yard seasons every season for Evans. Him and Baker have been locked in since Mayfield became a Tampa Bay Buck a couple of years ago. Evans, he's the deep ball threat. He could burn a secondary. He's a big play wide receiver and a matchup problem. 6'6", 6'7", is Mike Evans. And even entering his 12th season, I think he's a wide receiver underrated on some of these platforms and has a good season once again. 14, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. He's another wide receiver that's under the radar a little bit. I think is Garrett Wilson entering the season. Even with Zach Wilson, we've seen him have 1,000-yard seasons and over 90 catches. So we know Justin Fields, he's a run-first quarterback for the most part. But I've said it in other videos as well a few years ago with DJ Moore. Fields was getting more of the football. Moore had over 1,300 yards that year with Fields at quarterback. So like I said, Gary Wilson, he's been a great wideout. He got his money this offseason. The Jets don't really have a number 2 option in the passing game. That's going to be a big threat to him. And like I said, Wilson's flying under the radar a little bit. And when it's all said and done at the end of the year, he's amongst the league leaders in catches and even in yards, top 10, top 15. 15, Jackson Smith and the Jigba of the Seattle Seahawks. So he moved up my board a little bit over the last couple weeks here is JSN. Last season he had over 100 catches. I know Sam Darnold's in there quarterback, and we don't know what to expect from him, even though last year he had a breakout season with the Minnesota Vikings, even though look at that offense over there in Minnesota. But I think JSN's going to be fine. I know they brought in Cooper Kupp, but his prime days are behind him. Even though I think he still has juice left in the tank, and it'll be a factor for the Seattle team. But like I said, JSN, he's got that breakout ability. He's a game-breaking type of wide receiver. And I think in the late third, early fourth round range is good value for JSN entering the season. 16, Davante Adams of the Los Angeles Rams. So his first season with Los Angeles last year between the Raiders and the Jets, another solid season for Davante Adams. And quickly, as soon as free agency opened, he signed on was Adams with the Rams. So he's the number 2 option in the offense behind Puka Nacua. Great running back in Kyren Williams. We'll see if Matthew Stafford's healthy. But regardless, I think the volume is going to be there. And Sean McVay, we know he's a great offensive mind. He finds ways to get his best playmakers the football. 17 T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. Some low on Higgins than consensus as well as T. Higgins. I know last year he had a monster year. I know he got the contract extension, and deservingly so, by the Cincinnati Bengal team. But last season, this team, they were trailing by 2 or 3 touchdowns every game and had no choice but to throw the football 40 or 50 times easily per game. So T. Higgins, he's a big play wide receiver. I know he was a big-time wideout before Chase got into the league. But I think this season he takes a little bit of a step back. And the other thing with Higgins, he's been injury prone, and even last season he missed a couple ball games. 18, Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Arizona Cardinals. So last season, a lot of hype, and rightfully so for Marvin Harrison coming into the year where he was going second round in a lot of fantasy drafts. But now third to early fourth round is where Harrison's going in drafts now, and I think that's a good spot for him. So the number one target in the passing game is Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison, though, he can run all the routes, big time, big play receiver. Him and Murray just got to get on the same page. And he took it seriously this offseason that he had a down rookie year, a little over 800 yards receiving last season. So I think this year, after bulking up and studying more tape and getting on the same page with Murray, Marvin Harrison could have a breakout second season. 19 DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Metcalf wanted money from Seattle. They didn't want to give it to him, so they traded him off to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was Metcalf. And Metcalf, he went out there and got his money after that trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now Aaron Rodgers, arguably the best quarterback he's played with. Even at 41 years old, he always gets his number one targets to football. They always put up fantasy numbers. And there's no one in that receiving room that's really going to be a threat at all to take some targets from Metcalf. Where last season in Seattle, JSN arguably was their number one target as the year went on. Number 20, Xavier Worthy of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Worthy, he's going to operate as the number one wide receiver sooner than later. After Rashee Rice has that hearing, obviously September 30th, we'll see if he gets suspended or not. So the first 4 weeks, they're going to run Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy is the top 2 wide receivers running in that offense with Travis Kelce. And Worthy, towards the end of last season, him and Mahomes really worked on rapport. So if Worthy now and Mahomes stay on the same page and even build it up more this season and connect on a couple deep balls, where Worthy's already one of the fastest wide receivers in all pro football, I think we're going to see a big season here by Xavier Worthy. And especially when Rashee Rice will most likely get suspended after week 4 here, his stock's going to rise up even more. 21 to Torrey McMillan of the Carolina Panthers. So I'm big on McMillan coming into the year. He was a top prospect receiver coming out of college. I know the landing spot ain't really ideal over there in Carolina, but he's going to have no competition as well in the receiving game. I know Adam Thielen had some ball games last season, but he's in the latter part of his career. Xavier Legette, he didn't really do much in his rookie season. Jalen Coker, he didn't do much as well. So McMillan stepping in day one as the number one wideout on this offense. And this team's going to be trailing a lot. So McMillan, with his 6'4" size, his running ability and big playmaking ability, this kid could be in for a monster rookie season. 22, DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore, even in the down season last year, over 90 receptions. Now adding Ben Johnson, reports coming out, he might even run the football and line up in the backfield more, is DJ Moore. They're going to use him in a lot of ways, like obviously Johnson used Amon-Ra St. Brown, different formations, obviously running the football at times, and the rounds even throwing the football at times is what we saw St. Brown in this offense. I think DJ Moore and this Ben Johnson offense could be solid, but obviously it counts on Caleb Williams as well, taking the next step here in year 2 and making plays, because to be honest, Caleb Williams for the majority of his rookie season wasn't that good last year. 23, Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see how long the suspension is, but the first month of the season, Rashee Rice, he's going to be on the field for this Kansas City Chiefs team, and he actually did crack my top 50 going into the year, where that video comes out as well soon. So right here, Rashee Rice, ACL injury last season, obviously off the field issues 2 off seasons ago, but he was putting up big numbers before he went down with injury and easily their number one target in the offense. He's a big play type of wideout as Rashee Rice, but like I said, with the suspension looming, I can't rank him much higher than this. 24, George Pickens of the Dallas Cowboys. Contract season for Pickens. Dak Prescott, easily the best quarterback he's played with, even though I know he played with Wilson last year Wilson now isn't the same quarterback he was years ago. And to have CeeDee Lamb opposite of him, he's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities. We know he catches crazy passes where you don't think he could get to him as Pickens. And he's got that one-on-one speed where he could burn a corner in that coverage. So I think this season with Dallas trailing a lot, and they don't have a good running game, Pickens can have a breakout season and get a nice contract either from Dallas or another team in free agency. 25, Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. He's quickly dropping down my list, is Terry McLaurin. And to be honest, I wasn't big on McLaurin even after last season. He had a good year with first-year quarterback Jaden Daniels, Washington. But now coming off PUP list is Terry McLaurin. He wants a new contract. He's not happy. And even if he reports week one, I don't think he's going to be 100% as Terry McLaurin, and it's going to take time to get his legs under him. So with all those factors and all these other receivers I mentioned, even though some of them are number twos on their teams, Terry McLaurin, at the price he's going in most fantasy drafts, is a wide receiver. I'm going to pass up 26 Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Devonta Smith, it was a down season for him with injuries. And let's be honest, adding Saquon Barkley to that offense, he's going to touch the rock 275, 300 times in just carries, and he's going to catch another 40 to 45 passes per season. So Devonta Smith, still an explosive wide receiver, still could obviously beat that one-on-one coverage where that's what he's going to get most likely with Barkley, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert in this offense, and Jalen Hurts has a good deep ball. But like I said, the ceiling is capped now for Devonta Smith, where he's that number 3 option in the pecking order. 27, Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. He moved down my rankings as well compared to a couple weeks ago when I had the top 40. So Flowers, number 1 option in the passing game. But we know this Baltimore Raven team, a run-first team. When you got Lamar Jackson, best rushing quarterback in the league. You got Derrick Henry, still one of the more elite runners in the league. And last season, what a year was for them on the ground. So Zay Flowers, there's games he disappears and doesn't do much. And then there's some games he goes out there and puts up numbers. But also as well, Mark Andrews has been the touchdown threat for many seasons with this Baltimore Raven team, with 11 last year. So touchdowns have been an issue for Flowers, and that's another reason he dropped down on the list a little. 28, Travis Hunter of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Hunter entering his rookie season, I think he's going to play majority receiver than he is corner. They traded a lot to move up to the second pick and get him as Jacksonville, and he's going to get a lot of one-on-one coverage. Obviously, with star receiver Brian Thomas having a monster rookie season last year. So Hunter going 6th, 7th round range, I think is good value for a guy who obviously has game-breaking ability and possibly one of the fastest players in all the NFL. 29, Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. Courtland Sutton, he got his contract, and rightfully so, in the offseason, and him and Bo Nix, they were just connecting and making plays all season last year, even though there wasn't much over there in Denver. But now we're adding R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. They're adding, obviously, Evan Ingram in the tight end room. I think the targets could go down a little bit for Sutton, but he's an underrated wide receiver. And let's say you got Sutton as your flex or your number 3 wide out. I think that's solid for fantasy owners going into the year. And like I said, he got the contract extension. Him and Bo Nix, they've been on the same page since day one last season. And I think he's a nice top 30 option. 30, Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. See, he's flying under the radar a little bit, is Ridley. Cam Ward, the rookie quarterback, number 1 pick overall, starting from day one for this Tennessee Titan team. And he's arguably the best quarterback right out of the gate that Ridley's played with in many seasons, since going back, obviously, to his Atlanta Falcon days with Matt Ryan, where the last few years, Trevor Lawrence he played with in Jacksonville. And then the last season, Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, it wasn't doing much for Calvin Ridley. So Ridley's got a lot of talent, still a young wide receiver. And there's not much in that passing game as well, besides Pollard in the backfield. Westbrook-Ikhine was a touchdown machine last year. He's gone. He went to Miami. And Ridley, he's going to be peppered with targets. 31, Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions. Last season, finally a breakout season, and he stayed on the field, which was a good thing, obviously, for Jameson Williams. So this year, we'll see what he does with the Lions once again. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one coverage. We know he's a home run hitter. He could take a slant for 60 yards to burn a secondary pretty quickly as Jameson Williams. But like I said, receptions aren't really going to be there. And for more times than not, you're going to have to count on a big play from Jameson Williams. But like I said, that big play, it just takes one for him to have a fantasy day. And we saw some monster games from him last year. 32, Jerry Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. So Jeudy, not much going on in that receiving room over there in Cleveland. I know Cedric Tillman they have. We know David Njoku, a nice tight end as well. But the backfield, not much going on. Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, Quentin Jukins, he's not going to get reprimanded for what he did off the field. But still, he's not even signed to his rookie contract. And he's not even in training camp. So this team, they're going to be a bad team once again, I believe. And Joe Flacco, I think, will be the starting quarterback going into the year. And Jeudy last season, 90 catches, over 1,200 yards. Finally broke out, just needed a change of scenery where it wasn't working in Denver. And this season, like I said, he's going to get a lot of volume where there's not much in that receiving room. 33, Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. I'm definitely lower on Waddle than a lot of people are coming into the year. And maybe it's because I had Waddle the last 2 seasons in a couple leagues and he just couldn't stay on the field. The numbers weren't there. And now, let's be honest, entering the season, right off the bat, he's the third option in the offense behind Devon Achane and behind Tyreek Hill. And Waddle, even coming into camp, he looked out of shape a little bit. So with all those factors, I know he's in a high-powered offense when healthy and Mike McDaniel, a good offensive mind. I just don't think the ceiling's that high for Waddle, even though I know a few years ago he had a monster season. But this year, I'm just down on him going in. 34, Jacoby Myers of the Vegas Raiders. So last season with bad quarterback play and Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, he still had 87 catches. And also that's factoring Brock Bowers, the number 1 option, over 100 catches last season in his rookie year for this Vegas Raider team. So this offense is going to be improved. They added Geno Smith in a deal. Pete Carroll, the head coach, which obviously he's a great head coach. He's been throughout his career. And also adding Ashton Jeanty, one of the better running back prospects to come out in the last decade. So with all those factors, Myers, he's going to have one-on-one coverage, I think. He's going to go out there. He's going to get targets. And we know Geno Smith, he's always been a quarterback that he puts that football up and he gets a lot of yards over the last couple seasons. I think this year, Jacoby Myers once again could have a good season. 35, Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. I know he's the number 1 wide receiver over there in New Orleans is Chris Olave, but I'm just not big on Olave coming into the season. I made a video, receivers to avoid. He was one of them, and there's not much upside, and he's had a lot of concussion problems over the last few seasons. So with the concussion problems and the quarterback room, a disaster. I know the rookie Tyler Shaw could be decent, but I don't think out of the gate. And Spencer Rattler, we saw last season, really couldn't do much with the Saint offense. So like I said, the ceiling's not that high for Chris Olave. It's got to do with the quarterback play. And one more concussion, who knows what it would do to Olave, where he might have to call it quits if it gets that bad for him, because he's had a couple concussions now over the last few seasons. 36, Stephon Diggs at the New England Patriots. So Diggs, 3rd year in a row with a new team. He got a nice contract in the offseason from this Patriot team. They were desperate for a number 1 last year, tore the ACL with Houston. And we know Diggs, he's had problems with Josh Allen, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So who knows, with a young quarterback like Drake May, if he'll have problems or not, is Diggs. So coming off the knee injury, and like I said, his numbers the last couple seasons have tailed off for Diggs. Who knows how good he'll be anymore. And I've said in other videos, it takes 2 seasons to get back to full form coming off an ACL. So with all those factors, and Diggs now in the latter part of his career, not in his prime anymore, I think Stephon Diggs, he's nothing more than a 3rd wide receiver flex option at best. 37, Khalil Shakir of the Buffalo Bills. So this Bill team, we know Josh Allen spreads it out. There's games he hits 7 or 8 different pass catches in the offense is Josh Allen. Shakir, good possession receiver, great hands. He caught 90% of the passes in his vicinity last season. And this year, once again, he's entering as the number 1 wideout. I know they added Joshua Palmer in the offseason, but I still think Shakir is going to be the guy over there. Keon Coleman last year didn't do much in his rookie season, but I think he'll improve. And Amari Cooper, they brought him in last season. He didn't affect Shakir's work at all, and he didn't sign with a team. So I think Shakir this season as a back-end 3rd receiver, but if you could get him as a 4th guy, I think that's where the value really is, filling in bye weeks and stuff like that. 38, Ricky Pearsall of the San Francisco 49ers. So pretty much he's the only legit wide receiver healthy on this roster. Brandon Ayuk, he's not going to be ready for the season opener, it looks like, for this 49er team. Jawan Jennings, he wants a new contract. He's banged up, no timetable for his return. And pretty much it's Pearsall and Kittle in the receiving room. So Pearsall's moved up my ranking board over the last couple weeks, where he didn't even crack the top 40 a few weeks ago where he took Jauan Jennings' spot in this ranking. So Pearsall last season, we know he got shot. He missed the first few weeks of the year, was Pearsall. But now, I think he could go out there this season and he could prove why he was a first-round pick and really work well in the Shanahan offense, where, like I said, Christian McCaffrey's healthy, and Pearsall, I know he's going to have to operate as the number one most likely early on, but he's going to get some targets, and Brock Purdy's a quarterback as well who spreads it out and gets his playmaker the ball. 39, Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears. So Odunze last season, he had a couple pop games here and there. Now he's going to step in as the number 2 wide receiver on the Chicago Bear team. Keenan Allen's gone. He went back to the Chargers. They drafted Luther Burden, even though he's going to be the number 3 wideout coming in. And Odunze, they used high draft capital coming into last season with Chicago with top 10 picks. I think Odunze will have some weeks, but there's a lot of mouths to feed over there in Chicago. And also with Caleb Williams, we'll see if he can improve in year 2. 40, Deebo Samuel of the Washington Commanders. So maybe I'm low on Samuel than other sites, but this is still a run-first type of offense. Jaden Daniels, he runs the football a lot. You got Austin Eckler catches some passes out of the backfield. Terry McLaurin is going to report to camp sooner than later, I believe. Even with the contract extension he wants is looming where he could hold out. So Deebo, I think his better years are behind him. And a lot of injuries did him in, and he lost his step. But he's still a wide receiver. I think I have pop games here and there for this Washington Commander team entering the season. So if you get him, anywhere from that 9th to 11th round range, I don't think it's horrible. 41, Cooper Kupp, the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of people totally writing Cooper Kupp off. I think he has a little juice left in the tank is Cooper Kupp. We know he still could run routes, even though he definitely lost the step. And he still has good hands as well. And now he enters a Seattle offense where I think they're going to throw the football a lot this season. I know they got Walker and Charbonnet in the backfield, a good 1-2 tandem. JSN's the number 1 coming into the season. But Cooper Kupp, a guy that I've been getting a lot in the mocks, anywhere from that 10th, 12th round range, is good value. And I still think he's a receiver worthy cracking the top 50 and being a number 4 wide receiver on your roster. 42, Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. Josh Downs is a great talent, but the thing is the quarterback plays the issue for me with him. Anthony Richardson's been a bust with injuries and not performing since they drafted him. Joe Flacco was the only quarterback really that got Josh Downs going and getting him in the football. And obviously now he's gone, went to Cleveland. And also Daniel Jones, he's not really a quarterback. We've seen him get his number 1 wide receiver throughout his career involved and have a good fantasy season. So like I said, the ceiling's not high. It's Daniel Jones quarterback, but he is the number 1 receiver on this Colt team. So he'll have some games where he works into volume. 43, Emeka Egbuka of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. First round pick by the Bucs this season. Chris Godwin going to start the season, most likely not playing. He's banged up with coming off a bad knee injury last year, even though he still got a nice contract. And Egbuka's a nice athlete. He can run the routes. And this is a gunslinging type of offense with Baker Mayfield on the center. So I think Egbuka could go out this season and it could be a number 4 wide receiver for fantasy owners going into the year. And if he breaks out, he could be a guy that can help you definitely in the second half of the season. 44, Jauan Jennings of the San Francisco 49ers. I mentioned earlier, he's holding out. He's banged up as well as Jennings. No timetable for his return. And with the season now only in a few weeks here, time's ticking if Jennings will be ready or not for this 49er team. But Jauan Jennings, we saw last season the upside he could have. He had a monster game. We had 12 catches, over 180 yards, and 3 touchdowns in a ball game. Him and Brock Purdy have a great rapport working with the second team many seasons ago. And now, obviously, both these guys starters for this 49er team, especially Purdy, getting that monster contract extension. But Jauan Jennings, like I said, his stock over the last couple of weeks is falling off with no new reporting. And him obviously not in training camp. 45, Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris Godwin most likely not going to start the season in the lineup. But I think week 3, week 4, he could be back for this Tampa Bay Buc team, even though it's going to take time to get his legs under him coming off a devastating knee injury, which obviously it wasn't worth it in a fourth quarter blowout game. He got hurt last season on Monday night was Chris Godwin. But Godwin, we saw last year, him and Baker had a great rapport. He was a PPR machine. But like I said, if he's going to be out and eased into this offense where they have other options, Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, and a good backfield, the Bucky Irvin and Rachaad White, he's not really a receiver I'm high on coming into the season, where it might take him to week 6, week 7 to get things going. 46, Jayden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. So this receiving room in Green Bay, who knows what's going to happen over there, obviously. They got Jayden Reed, you got Matthew Golden. They spent the first round pick on him coming into the year. Dontayvion Wicks, Christian Watson, who's always hurt, Romeo Doubs. So this receiving room, 5 notable names in there. We know Jordan Love likes to spread the football out, and also you got Aiden Tucker-Kraft. All those factors, I'm not high on these 2 wide receivers much. As bench pieces, I like them a lot going into the season, Reed, and possibly Golden with bigger upside, but as the season starts, I think Jayden Reed's going to be the number 1 in this offense, and Golden, he'll be a wide receiver worked in even more as the season goes on, where we see that a lot with rookies. 48, Jaden Higgins, another rookie of the Houston Texans. So I'm bigger on Higgins than consensus. He's a wide receiver with big playability, and he's lining up in training camp. And obviously preseason is the number 2 with Christian Kirk in the slot, where that's his natural position. Obviously is Christian Kirk's, and a lot of 2 wide receiver sets. We're going to see Higgins out there. He's going to get a lot of single coverage. He's a big target where he could be a matchup problem for cornerbacks. And I used good draft capital on him as well early in the second round was this Houston Texan team. So like I said, Higgins, he's a player starting right away out of the gate, it looks like, for Houston. Going to get one-on-one coverage with Nico Collins, obviously getting the attention. And C.J. Stroud, if he could just cut back on the turnovers, this kid could be in for a good rookie season and definitely a sleeper late in drafts. 49, Keenan Allen of the Los Angeles Chargers. So I've said this a lot with Allen. I think he could be the number 2 wide out this season. Not much in that receiving room behind Ladd McConkey. They got Trey Harris, the rookie. Quentin Johnson, he's been a drop machine throughout his NFL career in the early going. It hasn't worked out with him. So I think Keenan Allen, he could step right in. And last season, he did have 70 catches and 8 touchdowns, over 700 yards. So even in a bad year where he was banged up and in an offense that struggled in Chicago, he still had a serviceable season. And especially the last few weeks of the year, he was putting up double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues. So I think back with the Chargers, where him and Herbert have good rapport, and obviously he had some of his better seasons of his career with Herbert as Allen. Even at 33, I think he could produce. In the 50th and final receiver on rankings, Darnell Mooney of the Atlanta Falcons. So Darnell Mooney last season had some big games with Kirk Cousins. He's a deep ball threat. He's obviously a speedster, is Darnell Mooney, where he could take a slant route to the house for 50, 60 yards. And now with Michael Penix in there, quarterback, I think Penix is going to be a quarterback that spreads that football out. And this offense, pretty much, he's the number 3 target. Obviously, Bijan in the backfield. Obviously, Drake London. And then you got Darnell Mooney as the number 2 option that could run the routes and make big plays. So I think Darnell Mooney this season, once again, under the radar type of wide receiver, where he's going late in fantasy drafts, 12th, 13th round range to round out your bench. And last year, like I said, he went out there, had a nice season in his first year in Atlanta. And with Michael Penix gets him involved. So that's the top 50 wide receivers I'm ranking entering the 2025 fantasy football season.